On Tisha B'Av morning, we read keynote, elegies, poems from across the centuries, reflecting on the loss, the diaspora, the tragedies. And we also read Yehuda Halevi from Golden Age of Spain have a love affair in liturgy and poetry with Israel. And his Kina for Tisha B'Av, Zion Alal Tisholi, Zion, please ask about how we, the captives, are doing and how we are yearning, before airplanes, for eagle's wings to take us to the land. And when I arrive at the land, he says, I am going to bend down my face and kiss and embrace this holy ground. From that love affair, we get the image or literal actions that we've seen for the last 75 years when Olim, when new arrivals to the state of Israel land, they sometimes will bend down and kiss the ground. The most, picture in my mind is from an interesting film, Salah Shabati, which has its own issues, but that's for another time. But when he arrives in Israel, he bends down and kisses the ground. My first time in Israel was in 1994, 16 years old, on Ramah seminar. Ben Gurion Airport was a modern airport, but still not what it is today, because there was no jetways. You still had to go down onto the tarmac and take a shuttle to the terminal. And so after a 10-hour flight, if you've done on long haul flights, you don't always feel the most yourself right afterwards. And so it's my first time in Israel with me and many of my friends. And we look at each other when we get onto this tarmac. Are we supposed to bend down and kiss the ground? Is there something magic to this asphalt right in front of us? I don't think we bowed down, but it came across to our mind that something was different by coming to visit the land of Israel. And how are we supposed to behave? Later on in my career, I read these parts of Mark Twain's Innocents Abroad. If you know that book, or it's a collection of essays, he joined actually an evangelical Christian group on a tour to the Holy Land. It was obviously by boat. It's 1867. So he also goes to Paris and to other places and describes that. But he describes these pilgrims literally going into ecstatics when they get to all of the places in the Holy Land, obviously looking at from a Christian perspective. And Mark Twain, in his cynicism, makes fun of them. He says, look what's in front of you, really. The place is kind of forlorn. And the locals are actually trying to swindle these American tourists out of their American money. But yet he still is able to see some beauty. He comments about Jerusalem, and I want to read it to you, how beautiful it is, but also how tiny. And this is before the new city. So just imagine like kind of this old city. He'll describe it. A little bit kind of like a Wild West place. Perched on its internal hills, white, domed, and solid. The venerable city gleamed in the sun. So small. Why, it was no larger than an American village of 4,000 inhabitants. Then he mocks the tears that these pilgrims are shedding and calling them a nursery school, toddler behavior. He says tears are out of place. The thoughts of Jerusalem are full of poetry. They are sublime and they are full of dignity. Do not bend down to tears and give the emotions of a nursery, he says. I don't think Twain is against spirituality. Yes, he's certainly stoic, but he is telling us that the poetry and and what's in our mind is not what's in front of these pilgrims, and they need to find a way to distinguish the experience. He concludes his description by saying that the vision of Palestine, of the three religions, is dreamland. And so it is okay and actually appropriate, he says, that the reality in front of them in 1867 Ottoman Palestine is very different than the poetry that Christians, Jews, and Muslims have been reading for centuries. We see in this week's Torah portion that Moses knows firsthand that experiencing the land of Israel is much different than leading a people there or even just seeing it with his eyes. And so therefore, that's why he begs God, the Et Hanan, pleads with God, let me see this land. Let me see this land. But he's not going to be able to. But we are able to. If you have been to Israel, I've been 7 times. I am always in complete awe at the existence of the state of Israel. We call it now startup nation because of all the startups, but really itself is a startup nation. A nation for many reasons, which I've described over these 4 weeks, why it should not have been in existence and it should not be thriving the way it is. And yet it continues to do so. We know there are challenges, but yet despite the challenges, Israel and challenges it has faced for 75 years, Israel still exists. And yes, we have our own visions of what Israel should be today and what it was, obviously reading our poetry. But nothing will solidify a relationship with the land of Israel than visiting it. So I'm going to conclude this 5-week series with a dream, a vision. We already have planned a teen trip to Israel for this coming February. So what about an adult trip? What would it be to take an adult trip next spring, April, May? The details are still need to be worked out. But here is my vision, and after Shabbat, you can let me know if you are interested in joining it. It's for adults. I mean, anyone can join, but it's for people who can get off on a vacation, not at a school break. So we'll just sort of leave it for that. It is certainly for first-timers and many, and I don't want to say too many, and I don't want to put any judgment on it, but there are many adults who have not yet been to see Israel. And so this is your opportunity. But even if it's not your first time, you can join us. If you haven't been in a long time, Israel changes every single day, every single year. And if you just want to join us for a spiritual experience, we won't be like the innocents abroad. We're going to see the modern and ancient really live together in harmony. And of course, we're going to meet and interact with the people of Israel. They are our brothers and sisters. And so they are going to open their arms. Yes, they're going to take some of our money because they need to earn a living. But really, they want to see us. They want to see us. They know that we need to have a relationship with the state of Israel. That's why there is a minister of diaspora affairs. Most countries don't have that. We have a minister of diaspora affairs. Of course, there's a cost. I'm going to throw out the word $5,000 in our mind. Going to Israel is not cheap. It is one of the most expensive Jewish experiences you will have, but also one of the most lasting of them. So it has value. I understand that it's a lot of money. Certainly there's ways to make it a little bit lower. About 10 days. Trips usually last about 10 days. Where are we going to stay? We're going to get really discounts. I'm going to say the 4-star hotels. So, take one level from the top. Okay, one level from the top. Activity level, These are for adults with, I say, a typical range of stamina. We're not going on huge hikes. We also will incorporate some rest time. So we will have a full itinerary, but we're not going to overstuff the itinerary as well. So after Shabbat, I'll be sending out a survey. And if you're interested, obviously you don't have to sign and put the money, just let me know. And I'll put even a little bit of perhaps some date opportunities to see where it falls through. It's easy, it's hard to plan a trip to Israel. It is hard because everyone's schedules have to sort of mesh. And there is some compromise. When you want to go on a group, you're going to have to compromise. Yes, people travel on their own. They're certainly welcome to do so, but there's also a lot of benefits to being in a group and to be with your Temple Israel friends. If we're going to build a lasting memory, then what better place to be able to come back and see the people that you're on a memory. If you've been on a cruise, yes, you meet cool people, but do you really ever get to see them again? So here's a chance to, I can bring up all the Brigadoon stories or whatever like that, but here's a chance to really go traveling with your Temple Israel family. I want to conclude with a teaching and a comparison between Moses and Abraham. God rejects Moses' prayer and tells him to go up to the summit of Pisgah and gaze Yama B'Tzafona B'Teimana Umizracha, and to see the land with your eyes. But for Abraham, what does he say? Kum hitalech ba'aretz le'orka u'rachba ki lecha etinena. Go and walk the land, its breadth and its length. I could say its depth too, because I'm going to give you, and I'll say your descendants, the land. We are back to be able to walk and see the land of Israel. And so I hope that if you are able and considering it, consider joining me on an adult trip to Israel next spring. Shabbat Shalom.